Stimme ab. Wenn ja, dann tritt für mich ein, so wie ich für dich eingetreten bin.
Democracy dies in many ways, sometimes with a bang, a coup, a war, a revolution, but more often, it dies with a vote. A manipulated vote. A vote that looks free on the surface, but beneath is anything but. From Hitler to Putin, dictators have shown us how to hijack the electoral process and turn it into a weapon. And now, in 2025, Donald Trump is following the same blueprint, a step-by-step erosion of the safeguards that protect the will of the people. Welcome to How Democracies Die. In this first episode, we're tackling something that should scare every citizen who still believes in democracy: the illusion of the vote. We'll look at how past dictators rose to power, not by rejecting democracy, but by pretending to respect it. Let's start in Germany, 1933. Hitler was appointed chancellor, not elected president, and yet within months he became a dictator. How? By exploiting a national emergency. The Reichstag, Germany's parliament, was set on fire. The government blamed communists, but many historians believe the Nazis may have staged it. Why? Because it gave Hitler the perfect excuse to demand special powers. He passed the Enabling Act, giving him the ability to rule by decree. This is a clear warning from history. Pay attention. Hitler used fear of the communists, the others, to declare a national emergency. He used the powers granted to suspend the right to assembly, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, and many other constitutional protections. He removed restraints on police investigations, providing the ability to arrest and imprison his political opponents and dissolve opposing political organizations. It gave him the power to overrule state and local laws and overthrow state and local government. What came next? Rigged elections, banned opposition parties, propaganda so pervasive that many Germans believed they were still living in a democracy. Elections continued, but now, only Nazis can win. Overnight, the Weimar Republic, a democracy, was dead. In Stalin's Soviet Union, elections were held every few years, but only one name was ever on the ballot: Stalin's. These weren't elections. They were loyalty tests. Voter turnout was reported at 99%, not because people were engaged, but because not voting could get you exiled, imprisoned, or killed. He was quoted as saying, "It is enough that the people know there was an election. The people who cast the votes decide nothing. The people who count the votes decide everything." End quote. Just because your country has elections, that does not mean you are living in a democracy. In Iraq, elections were never about choice. They were about fear. Saddam Hussein staged referendums designed to showcase absolute loyalty. In 1995, he held a national vote asking Iraqis to confirm him as president for another 7 years. The official result, 99.96% in favor. Out of more than 8 million ballots, only 3,000 were reported as no. Then in 2002, Saddam claimed an even more absurd result. 100% of Iraqis voted for him. Not one ballot rejected his rule. This wasn't democracy, it was theater, carefully orchestrated to prove that he was untouchable. Behind the numbers was coercion. Iraqis voted under the watchful eyes of Ba'ath Party officials and secret police. Refusing to participate meant suspicion, harassment, or worse. Families feared the consequences of even being suspected of being disloyal. Saddam also used elections as propaganda tools abroad. By staging overwhelming victories, he could claim to the world, and to his own people, that his rule was legitimate, that resistance was futile, and that he embodied the will of Iraq. In truth, Saddam's referendums revealed what elections look like under authoritarianism. Not a reflection of the people's voice, but a performance of the dictator's dominance. Vladimir Putin is a master of the illusion of democracy. On the surface, Russia still votes, but beneath, the game is rigged. And perhaps most insidiously, opposition candidates are routinely barred from running.
Outside the Central Electoral Commission, a lone protest in support of opposition leader Grigory Yavlinsky, the leader of the Liberal Yabloko party. The Commission's barred Yavlinsky from running in March's presidential election.
We're just going to take you live now to a press conference where Boris Nadezhdin, who's the only presidential hopeful to oppose the war in Ukraine, says he's been blocked for running for election. That's in Moscow now.
Alexei Navalny, Putin's most prominent critic, was banned from elections altogether. He was eventually jailed and poisoned.
Outspoken Vladimir Putin critic Alexei Navalny has been barred from running in Russia's presidential election.
This is Alexei Navalny, a prominent Russian opposition figure and Kremlin critic, lying on a stretcher at the Omsk airport, some time after he was poisoned.
There's been international outrage and condemnation at the news that the most prominent opposition leader in Russia, Alexei Navalny, has died suddenly in prison, according to the country's prison service. The 47-year-old was President Putin's most prominent and outspoken critic and had been jailed on extremism charges which were widely considered to be politically motivated. President Biden said tonight that President Putin was responsible for Mr. Navalny's death, and it was yet more proof of his brutality.
The media, controlled by the Kremlin, floods the airwaves with propaganda, ensuring voters hear only one narrative. Independent election monitors are harassed or barred, and reports of ballot stuffing and coerced voting are widespread. Here we see two women stuffing a ballot box. We all know who is behind this, especially since the security guards don't seem to mind, and we all know who won, with an impossible number of votes. Putin also manipulates the rules themselves. In 2020, he rewrote Russia's constitution, resetting his presidential term limits so he could legally remain in power until 2036. Legal on paper, but when you control the courts, the press, and the ballot box, legality means very little. Elections are staged as theater. In 2024, Putin won re-election with over 88% of the vote, a margin so vast that it defied credibility. But in authoritarianism, the size of the victory isn't meant to reflect reality. It's meant to project inevitability. That resistance is useless, because the leader always wins. Do not let them fool you. We've seen some of the methods other authoritarians have used to undermine the election process. Although their methods may vary, the goal is the same: to erode people's trust in the electoral process. Before we continue, there's a very important point that needs to be made. Donald Trump was 79 years old when this video was made. There was much concern in the media about his health, both mental and physical. Let's be clear. Donald Trump isn't doing this on his own. He is surrounded, supported, instructed, and enabled by a large group of people who want the same thing. From the wealthy and power-hungry, to the racists and religious extremists that occupy his cabinet, the House of Representatives, the Senate, and even the Supreme Court, these people share a common goal, the same goal Trump is working towards. They have a different vision for America and will stop at nothing, do anything, to see it accomplished. Should he be unable to finish his term for any reason, the issue doesn't just disappear. His successor will pick up right where he left off, surrounded and influenced by the same corruption, and the dismantling of America's democratic institutions will continue. perhaps under a more shrewd, more intelligent, more dangerous individual. Let's continue. The United States, 2020. Donald Trump loses the presidency to Joe Biden. But he didn't just lose an election. He forever changed how Americans view them. Instead of conceding, he declares the election stolen. In fact, he started that lie. The big lie. Even before the first votes were cast.
Stephen Medvick teaches political science at the local university.
There's bad stuff going on.
He says Trump's repeated and unfounded accusations of cheating are a strategy. He's discrediting the election so that if he loses, he can claim it was stolen.
And we're leading in all the polls. We should get elected, but remember this, they cheat like hell.
This was a tactic. If he wins, he would say what a free and fair election it was. If he loses, it was stolen. During the vote counting process, as it was becoming clear he was about to lose Georgia and the election, he tried to manipulate the results by pressuring state officials to find votes.
So, look, all I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have, because we won the state. And I watched you this morning, and you said, well, there was no criminality, but I mean, all of this stuff is very dangerous stuff. When you talk about no criminality, I think it's very dangerous for you to say that. Why wouldn't you want to find the right answer, Brad, instead of keep saying that the numbers are right? So look, can you get together tomorrow? And Brad, we just want the truth. It's simple. And everyone's going to look very good if the truth comes out. It's okay. It takes a little while, but let the truth come out. And the real truth is I won by 400,000 votes, at least. So what are we going to do here, folks? I only need 11,000 votes. Fellas, I need 11,000 votes. Give me a break.
They cheat like hell.
Eventually, Trump and 18 of his co-conspirators were indicted on multiple charges related to election fraud. 4 of them plead guilty. But before Trump and the others could be prosecuted, Trump won the 2024 election. January 6th, the Capitol is attacked, a violent attempt to stop the certification of a democratic election. The big lie has certainly worked on his supporters. Claiming widespread voter fraud, he files over 60 lawsuits. None succeed. And even after all that, Trump wasn't politically finished. In fact, he used the big lie to relaunch his political career. Trump didn't just claim fraud, he turned it into a litmus test. Support the lie, you stay in the party. Speak the truth, you're out. Like dictators before him, this wasn't about democracy. It was about loyalty. The Republican Party, now completely loyal only to Trump and complicit in the dismantling of democracy, have become the Trump regime. In 2021 and 2022, Republican legislatures passed dozens of voting restriction laws, drop-box limits, new ID laws, and limits on mail-in voting. These laws disproportionately affect voters of color, young people, and the poor. Voters that tend to lean towards the opposing party. They even pass laws enacting or increasing criminal penalties for election officials. Then came 2024. Trump won the presidency, but began undermining the legitimacy of any race Republicans lost. In Arizona, he called for audits. In Michigan, he claimed illegal ballots. In Congress, he endorsed efforts to challenge certified results. In March 2025, Trump issued a sweeping executive order aggressively centralizing federal control over voter eligibility. It required proof of citizenship, banned ballots received after Election Day, and empowered federal agencies to enforce these rules, undermining the state's constitutional role in administering elections. Trump also attacked trusted voting methods. He denounced mail-in ballots and electronic machines as fraudulent, despite overwhelming evidence of their security.
You know, Vladimir Putin said something, one of the most interesting things. He said your election was rigged because you have mail-in voting. He said mail-in voting every election. He said no country has mail-in voting. It's impossible to have mail-in voting and have honest elections.
Wait a minute. Did you say Putin told you? Vladimir Putin? The dictator that bans his political rivals from running in elections, has them imprisoned and poisoned, cheats in elections, and rewrote the Constitution to allow him to remain in power longer than was permitted? This is the guy you're getting advice from on free and fair elections? Well, of course he is. Putin has been whispering in Donald Trump's ear for years. It's very likely that he is the one most responsible for coaching Trump on how to destroy democracy. It wouldn't be a surprise if Putin wrote step-by-step instructions for him. The fall of America has been Putin's lifelong dream, and it seems he's found his useful idiot. As for Trump's claims that nobody else has mail-in voting, that's a lie, plain and simple. The fact is, there are many countries, including Australia, Canada, and much of Europe, countries with well-established, healthy democracies and no significant issues with mail-in ballot fraud. The simple fact is, in the 2020 election, the majority of mail-in ballots in the United States were submitted by Democrats, and that's why Trump wants to eliminate them. Beyond voting itself, Trump undermined the infrastructure of democracy by sidelining or removing independent monitors and regulators. He replaced civil servants in agencies meant to safeguard elections with loyalists, ensuring that oversight became a political tool rather than a neutral safeguard. Okay, that was a lot to take in. Let's take a moment to reflect on what Trump has done to undermine elections and erode the public's confidence in the system. First, start sowing the seeds of doubt in people's minds by claiming your opponents are going to cheat long before the election begins. By the way, this is a tactic Trump uses constantly. Accuse your opponent of what you are doing or will do. So when they accuse you, it's a draw. Now nobody knows what to believe, so nobody can believe anything. But that's a topic for another day. Next, attempt to cheat by threatening and intimidating Georgia's Secretary of State, demanding that he find votes that don't exist. Declare the election was stolen, that it was rigged against you, that the other team cheated. Start a violent insurrection, sending your supporters to the Capitol to stop the certification, creating a huge spectacle to make it appear that an injustice was done and people are fighting against a corrupt system. While you're at it, pressure your vice president to break the law and his oath to the Constitution to cheat for you. Threaten your members in the House and Senate. Repeat the big lie, or you will publicly trash them until they are voted out of the party. Next, get legislators to pass restrictive voting laws, targeting demographics that vote for Democrats. Create laws and increase penalties targeting election officials to encourage them to quit or discourage people from taking those positions, because the last thing we want are honest, independent, objective monitors watching. Fire civil servants in regulatory agencies and stack the deck with loyalists. Finally, attack mail-in voting to make it more difficult for Democrats to vote. People often tell themselves, no, it can't happen here. But here's the truth. Elections don't protect democracy on their own. Hitler had elections. So did Stalin and Hussein. Putin still does. What protects democracy is trust, transparency, rule of law, a shared belief in the legitimacy of the system. And that's what's being dismantled, piece by piece, right now. Trump isn't canceling elections. He doesn't have to. He's turning them into tools for his own power, by manipulating them, by making you doubt them, or accept their results only when they go his way. That's the danger. Because if citizens only respect elections when their side wins, then democracy isn't a principle anymore. It's just a tactic. By now you must be thinking, What can we do to save our democracy from those who want to destroy it? Before we get to that, a quick note about the next video in the series. In part 2 of How Democracies Die, we will discuss the war on truth, why every authoritarian attacks the press, and how fake news became a weapon in the United States. So, what can be done? Let's create our own to-do list. First, share this video series. It is vitally important that people understand what is happening, that the time to stand up is now, because in the near future, it may be too late. So email a link to anyone you think needs to see these videos. Post a link on discussion forums or other social media sites. If you have your own channel, give a shout out. Like the video and subscribe to the channel so that YouTube will put it in more people's feeds. It's the simplest way you can help to push back. Next, you must speak up at town halls and social media by emailing your representative. Huge protests, like the No Kings protests, are happening across the country. Search online for protests near you and participate. Fight disinformation. You need to push back on the lies and propaganda being spread by Trump and his regime. Vote in every election, and not just for president. Democracy depends on you, not just once every 4 years, but every single day. The checkboxes on this list are empty. It's up to you to check them yourself. And finally, join the resistance at www.resisthq.com. And thanks for watching.